The wind howled like a hungry wolf, its icy breath cutting through the air with a ferocity that seemed almost alive. It tore through the ancient pines of the Canadian wilderness, bending their sturdy trunks and shaking loose the snow that clung to their branches. Snow fell in thick sheets, burying the world in a blanket of white, transforming the landscape into a silent, frozen wonderland. This was a place of deep shadows and ancient secrets, where the past lingered like a ghost, whispering tales of forgotten times. It was a place where the wind carried whispers of something dark and hungry, a presence that seemed to lurk just beyond the edge of sight. The locals spoke of the Wendigo, a creature of legend that haunted their dreams and stalked their waking hours. Born from the coldest winters and the darkest desires, a being that thrived on fear and despair. It was a being of insatiable hunger, forever stalking the frozen wastelands, searching for its next victim. Most dismissed it as a mere story, a way to frighten children around a flickering fire. But some knew better, for they had seen the signs. They had seen the tracks in the snow, impossibly large and eerily human-like, leading deeper into the forest. They had heard the creature's chilling howl echoing through the frozen air, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. These were the unfortunate souls who had seen the truth behind the legend. This is their story, a tale of survival and terror in the heart of the wilderness. LaCroix was a man of the wilderness. He lived alone in a small cabin on the edge of Black Bear Ridge, a remote and unforgiving corner of the Canadian wilderness. He was a trapper by trade, a solitary figure who knew the secrets of the forest like the back of his weathered hand. Henry had spent decades braving the harsh winters and unpredictable moods of the wilderness. He had stared down hungry wolves and outwitted cunning wolverines. He scoffed at the stories whispered by the fireside, tales of mythical beasts and ancient evils. The only monsters, he believed, were the ones men carried in their hearts. He would soon learn the error of his ways. The Wendigo, a name that echoed through the ages, whispered in hushed tones around campfires. Even the name sent shivers down the spines of the bravest hunters. It was a name that invoked fear and dread, a name that no one dared to speak aloud in the depths of the forest. It was said to be a creature of immense size and power, its heart a frozen lump of ice. Legends described it as towering over the tallest trees, its presence casting a long, dark shadow over the land. Its skin was stretched taut over its bones, giving it a skeletal appearance. The Wendigo's gaunt form was a haunting sight, a reminder of the horrors that lay hidden in the wilderness. Its eyes burned with an unnatural hunger, a hunger that could never be satisfied. Those who gazed into its eyes saw their deepest fears reflected back at them, a chilling reminder of the creature's insatiable appetite. Legend had it that the Wendigo was once a man, driven to madness by starvation. A man who had once been part of a community, now lost to the wilds. This desperate soul had resorted to cannibalism, consuming the flesh of his fellow man to survive the unforgiving wilderness. In his desperation, he had crossed a line that should never be crossed. In doing so, he had committed the ultimate taboo, and the spirits of the forest had cursed him, twisting him into a grotesque mockery of a human being. His transformation was a slow, agonizing process, a punishment for his unspeakable acts. The Wendigo was more than just a physical creature. It was an embodiment of greed, of the darkness that lurked within the human soul. It represented the consequences of giving in to one's darkest desires, a living nightmare born from human weakness. It was a warning to those who dared to venture too far into the wilderness, a reminder that nature was a powerful and unforgiving force. The legend of the Wendigo served as a cautionary tale, a story passed down through generations to remind us of the thin line between survival and monstrosity. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. Tracks in the snow, larger than any man or beast Henry had ever encountered, appeared mysteriously overnight. The eerie silence of the forest, broken only by the beating of his own heart, seemed to grow heavier with each passing day, a gnawing sense of dread that settled over him like a shroud, making every shadow seem more menacing. At first, Henry dismissed these unsettling signs as tricks of his imagination, mere figments of a tired mind. He was a seasoned woodsman, not prone to flights of fancy or superstition. His rational mind sought logical explanations, but as the days turned into nights, the strange occurrences intensified, leaving him with more questions than answers. He began to hear whispers in the wind, faint and disembodied voices calling his name, sending chills down his spine. One evening, as Henry sat by the fire, a sense of unease washed over him, stronger than ever before. He felt a presence outside his cabin, a pair of unseen eyes watching him from the darkness, making his skin crawl. He grabbed his rifle and cautiously made his way to the door, every step filled with trepidation and anticipation of what he might find. Opening the door a crack, Henry peered out into the night. The wind howled around him, whipping snow into his face. The forest was a black void, the trees swaying like phantoms in the swirling snow. He saw nothing. Just as he was about to turn back, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye, a flicker of movement at the edge of the tree line. A tall, gaunt figure, its silhouette barely discernible against the backdrop of the forest. Henry raised his rifle, his heart pounding in his chest. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice barely audible above the wind. The figure didn't answer. It simply stood there, watching him, its eyes two glowing embers in the darkness. Henry LaCroix, hardened trapper and skeptic of the wild, felt a chill run down his spine. Fear, primal and instinctive, tightened its grip. The figure remained motionless, yet its presence seemed to pulse, a beacon against the howling wind. It was tall, impossibly tall, dwarfing the snow-laden pines that framed its silhouette. "Show yourself!" Henry's voice betrayed his growing fear, cracking with a tremor he never thought possible. A low growl, barely audible yet bone-chillingly distinct, answered him. It wasn't the growl of a bear, nor the snarl of a wolf. This was something different, something ancient and hungry. Henry's grip tightened on his rifle. He knew he should retreat back into the relative safety of his cabin, yet an unseen force held him rooted to the spot. Days turned into nights, and the figure continued to stalk Henry. It never came close, but its presence was always felt, a shadow lurking at the edge of his vision. His traps remained empty, the animals seemingly vanishing from the forest. The wind whispered his name, carrying with it the creature's chilling howl. Sleep became a distant memory. Henry was plagued by nightmares, visions of the grotesque creature with its hollow eyes and insatiable hunger. He could feel his sanity slipping away, replaced by a growing terror that threatened to consume him. The isolation, once a comfort, became a prison. The silence of the wilderness, once a source of peace, now echoed with unspoken horrors. He was trapped, both by the creature outside and the growing madness within. When weeks passed with no sign of Henry, concern rippled through the nearby village. A small group of seasoned hunters, led by a grizzled old trapper named Jacques, decided to brave the harsh winter conditions and search for their missing comrade. They arrived at Henry's cabin to find it in disarray. Furniture was overturned, supplies were scattered, and the air hung heavy with an unsettling silence. The only sign of life was a single set of footprints leading into the depths of the forest. Jacques recognized the tracks instantly. They were the tracks of the Wendigo. The search party followed the tracks for days, their hope dwindling with each passing hour. The forest grew darker, the trees closing in like iron bars. The wind carried whispers of madness and despair. They found no sign of Henry. Some whispered that he had succumbed to the elements, his body swallowed by the unforgiving wilderness. Others claimed that he had met a darker fate, his soul claimed by the creature that haunted the frozen wastelands. The truth, like so many things in the wilderness, remained shrouded in mystery. The legend of the Wendigo lived on, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within the human heart and the hunger that could never be satisfied. Years later, a lone trapper stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin deep in the wilderness. It was Henry's cabin, frozen in time. As he stepped inside, he noticed something strange. Scratched into the wooden floor, as if carved with desperate urgency, was a message. "The hunger never sleeps," it read. "It only grows stronger." The trapper felt a chill run down his spine as he read those words. He could hear the wind howling outside, carrying with it the faintest whisper of a chilling howl. He knew then that some legends were best left undisturbed. He fled the cabin and never looked back.
Thank you for joining us around the campfire. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another amazing story. And be sure to join us next time as we explore tales